Muy buenos días, distinguidas autoridades, estimados docentes, panelistas, conferencistas, talleristas, estudiantes y público que nos acompaña de manera virtual. La Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, a través de la Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias, la Dirección General de Vinculación y Relaciones Internacionales y el Centro de Estudios de Idiomas, en colaboración con la Asociación Nacional de Universidades e Instituciones de Educación Superior, ANUYES, y Michigan Language Assessment, les dan la más cordial de la bienvenida a este importante encuentro académico, primer Foro Internacional de Enseñanza del Idioma Ltif 2025, mismo que busca fortalecer la enseñanza del idioma inglés en el nivel medio superior. Es un honor contar con la presencia de distinguidas autoridades que hoy nos acompañan. Damos la más cordial de las bienvenidas a la maestra América Magdalena Lizárraga González. Ella es directora de Cooperación Internacional de la ANUYES. Además, nos acompaña también Viviana Abella. Ella es Senior Business Development Manager LATAM en Michigan Language Assessment. Por otro lado, agradecemos a las autoridades universitarias que hoy nos acompañan. Se encuentra con nosotros el vicerrector por la Unidad Regional Norte, el doctor Lauro César Parra Acevis. Por la Unidad Regional Centro Norte, el vicerrector, el doctor Mario Soto Velázquez. Por la Unidad Regional Centro, el doctor Wenceslao Plata Rocha. Y por la Unidad Regional Sur, el doctor Manuel Iván Tostado Ramírez. Además, estamos en este espacio virtual y contamos con la presencia del doctor Jesús Enrique Sánchez Azueta. Él es director de la Dirección General de Vinculación y Relaciones Internacionales. Y por parte del Centro de Idiomas Culiacán, el doctor Rigoberto Rodríguez García. De la misma manera, damos la bienvenida a la directora general de Escuelas Preparatorias, la maestra en Ciencias Marisol Mendoza Flores, así como al director académico de la Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias, al doctor Damián Rendón Toledo. Aprovechamos para agradecer en este espacio la presencia de los 4 directores de colegio regional. Y bueno, quienes han fungido un papel importante para que esta actividad sea una realidad son los coordinadores de la Academia Estatal de Inglés de la DGP. Ellos son la doctora Evelyn Guerrero Amarillas y el doctor Ángel González Escalantes. A todas y a todos ustedes, muchas gracias por honrarnos con su presencia. Este encuentro es un reflejo del compromiso de nuestra institución con la innovación educativa, la formación integral y la vinculación internacional, pilares que fortalecen la calidad del bachillerato universitario. Sean todas y todos ustedes bienvenidos a Ltif 2025. A continuación, cedemos el uso de la voz a la maestra en Ciencias Marisol Mendoza Flores, directora general de Escuelas Preparatorias de la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, quien compartirá con nosotros un mensaje de bienvenida. Adelante, maestra Marisol.
Ay, ahí. Bueno,
Sí, ya.
ok, disculpe. Bueno, pues buenos días, estimados colegas, distinguidos invitados y participantes del primer Foro Internacional de Enseñanza de Idiomas. Es un honor para mí darles la más cálida bienvenida a este evento académico, coordinado con entusiasmo y visión por la Academia Estatal de Inglés de la Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias de nuestra Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa. Quiero expresar mi profundo agradecimiento a los coordinadores de la academia, a la doctora Evelyn Guerrero Amarillas y al doctor Ángel González Escalante por su incansable compromiso con la excelencia académica y su visión para estar siempre a la vanguardia en la enseñanza del idioma inglés. Su iniciativa para llevar a cabo este primer foro internacional es un testimonio de su dedicación y liderazgo. Muchísimas gracias, Evelyn y Ángel. Agradezco sinceramente la valiosa participación de todos ustedes, quienes han hecho posible que hoy estemos reunidos en este espacio de intercambio académico y colaboración, por lo que extiendo mi agradecimiento a la maestra América Lizárraga González, directora de Cooperación Internacional de la NUYES, por su destacada colaboración. Gracias por acompañarnos. Al doctor Jesús Enrique Sánchez Azueta, de la Dirección General de Vinculación y Relaciones Internacionales de la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, por su gran apoyo institucional. Y por supuesto, agradecer a nuestros vicerrectores, grandes impulsores del bienestar académico en las 4 unidades regionales de nuestro estado. Mi reconocimiento al doctor Lauro César Parra Cebes de la Unidad Regional Norte, al doctor Mario Soto Velázquez de la Unidad Regional Centro Norte, gracias por acompañarnos, al doctor Wenceslao Plata Rocha de la Unidad Regional Centro y al doctor Manuel Iván Tostado Ramírez de la Unidad Regional Sur, así como a los 4 directores de colegio de bachillerato, César, Carla, Ivonet y Johan. Muchas gracias por su seguimiento y apoyo a cada actividad académica. Al doctor Rigoberto Rodríguez García, gracias por el gran apoyo en esta organización y la gran coordinación con los demás centros de idiomas de nuestra institución. A los directores de idiomas en el estado por su compromiso con la UAS y a cada uno de los directores de las unidades académicas que impulsaron la participación de sus docentes en este gran evento. Muchísimas gracias. Aprovecho también para agradecer y reconocer a nuestro conferencista del día de hoy, al doctor Jorge Antonio Aguilar Rodríguez. Muchas gracias por su participación. Este foro es un espacio para compartir experiencias, reflexionar sobre prácticas innovadoras y fortalecer la colaboración en la enseñanza de idiomas a nivel internacional. Esperamos que este intercambio enriquezca nuestra perspectiva y contribuya al desarrollo de la educación en idiomas. Gracias por estar aquí. Les deseo una fructífera participación y un provechoso intercambio académico. Tengamos siempre presente que los límites nos los ponemos nosotros y este evento nos demuestra que no hay barreras para seguir creciendo y compartiendo. Enhorabuena y por su atención, muchísimas gracias.
Después de escuchar el mensaje de bienvenida de la maestra Marisol Mendoza, escucharemos las palabras de la maestra América Magdalena Lizárraga González. Ella es directora de Cooperación Internacional de la Asociación Nacional de Universidades e Instituciones de Educación Superior, ANUYES. Adelante, maestra América.
Hola, muy buenos días. Con mucho aprecio me dirijo a ustedes en representación de la Asociación Nacional de Universidades e Instituciones de Educación Superior, ANUYES, en este Language Teaching International Forum 2025, en el que la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa ha impulsado con gran visión y compromiso académico. Permíteme reconocer en primer término este espacio la labor que realizan ustedes como docentes de inglés en el nivel medio superior. Ustedes, sin lugar a dudas, son mentores, son guías, son facilitadores que con gran creatividad y por supuesto con una entrega que hacen diario, abren a sus estudiantes esas puertas que se requieren para llenar un mundo con oportunidades y además ustedes son quienes con dedicación y con empeño pues generan todo lo que se va requiriendo día a día en las aulas, ¿no? Abren también horizontes de comunicación, tienen ese conocimiento, ese ímpetu de que estudiantes participen en procesos de movilidad estudiantil, que siempre son importantes para esta inserción laboral en México y que también se requiere en este mundo, pues que vamos transfundiendo y pasando a la globalización. Hoy en día, sin lugar a dudas, el idioma inglés, más allá de ser esta herramienta de comunicación a nivel internacional, se va convirtiendo en pues una fuente, en una importante comunicación, en un importante medio para esta innovación de movilidad académica y también de construcción de proyectos de vida, tanto personal y profesional entre la comunidad estudiantil. El foro que hoy nos convoca es sin duda una oportunidad de diálogo, de reflexión, de un intercambio de ideas en torno a la enseñanza del inglés, pero también poniendo énfasis sobre todo en la innovación didáctica. Tenemos que estar día a día con esa transversalidad curricular que la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa siempre está en función de ello. Hacer también un trabajo colegiado y sobre todo este uso del idioma con un propósito que sea diverso en ese mundo contextualizado en el área internacional. Desde la NUYES reconocemos ese liderazgo, ese compromiso y celebramos con ustedes esa cuestión alentadora, ese interés de seguir construyendo a través de la práctica docente una educación superior más inclusiva, pertinente y con visión internacional que sin lugar a dudas va a fortalecer a la comunidad estudiantil y sobre todo el desarrollo regional y nacional que tanto se requiere en nuestro país. Les deseamos mucho éxito en estas actividades del foro y sobre todo el interés desde la NUYES de generar nuevas ideas, nuevos vínculos para fortalecer la enseñanza del inglés desde las aulas de la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa. Reiteramos nuestro compromiso, nuestro apoyo desde esa asociación en la cual generemos pronto muchos proyectos futuros en colaboración con ustedes por siempre. Muchas gracias por su atención y en colaboración siempre.
Muchas gracias, maestra América. Para dar inicio oficial a los trabajos de Ltif 2025, invitamos respetuosamente al doctor Jesús Enrique Sánchez Azueta de la Dirección General de Vinculación y Relaciones Internacionales, quien, en representación de las autoridades universitarias, realizará la inauguración de este evento académico. Adelante, doctor.
Muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Pues para mí es un placer estar aquí con ustedes en la honrosa representación del doctor Jesús Madueña Molina, rector de la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, quien les manda un afectuoso y solidario saludo. Pues muchas gracias a todas y a todos los organizadores que pueden hacer este gran evento de manera virtual en la que estamos en colaboración diferentes áreas de la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, diferentes socios y socios estratégicos de nuestra universidad, como la NUYES, Michigan State y diferentes organizaciones que nos apoyan. Para nosotros es un placer tener este foro para fortalecer los trabajos que desarrollamos en nuestra institución y poder ser y tener mejores egresados con mayor calidad, con mayores niveles de habilitación para el empleo y para el desarrollo profesional y, ¿por qué no?, para ser dueños de su propia empresa en un futuro. Dentro de nuestro plan de desarrollo institucional con visión de futuro 2029 tiene 6 ejes principales. Este tipo de actividades impacta directamente en 4D, ¿no? Investigación y transferencia de conocimiento, formación académica de vanguardia, perdón, extensión universitaria con responsabilidad social, vinculación estratégica para el desarrollo. Este tipo de eventos y la enseñanza de los idiomas y en específico del idioma inglés nos abre muchas puertas a todas y a todos nuestros profesores, también a nuestros estudiantes, que en un futuro no muy lejano serán el desarrollo de nuestro estado, de nuestra región y de nuestro país. A nombre del doctor Jesús Madueña Molina, le damos la bienvenida y que este espacio sea de mucho aprendizaje, mucha reflexión y que podamos mejorarnos como docentes del idioma inglés, así como de todas nuestras áreas donde trabajamos y nos desarrollamos. Pues sin más preámbulo, siendo hoy viernes 19 de septiembre, siendo las 9:46, damos por inaugurado este foro. Muchas gracias.
Agradecemos profundamente las palabras del doctor Jesús Enrique Sánchez Azueta, con las que ha quedado formalmente inaugurado el primer Foro Internacional de Enseñanza del Idioma 2025. En este momento, los invitamos a que nos acompañen a ver un video de presentación acerca de lo que significa este primer foro Ltif 2025.
Primer Foro Internacional de Enseñanza del Inglés. Desde la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, bienvenidas y bienvenidos. Hoy damos inicio a un espacio que conecta experiencias, comparte investigación y construye sinergias para impulsar el aprendizaje del inglés en un mundo cada vez más interconectado. Este foro es promovido por la Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa a través de la Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias, los Centros de Idiomas y la Dirección de Vinculación y Relaciones Internacionales. Se enriquece con la colaboración académica de ANUYES, Michigan Language Assessment y la University of Monterey Bay, California, instituciones de gran prestigio que fortalecen la proyección internacional de nuestra universidad. En el bachillerato, el inglés es clave, abre oportunidades académicas y laborales, fortalece la ciudadanía global y prepara a nuestras y nuestros jóvenes para participar en el escenario internacional. Gracias a la alianza con Michigan Language Assessment, la UAS consolida un programa de capacitación docente de nivel internacional, promueve la Assessment Literacy y fortalece la alineación al marco común europeo de referencia. Esto abre trayectorias sólidas de certificación para estudiantes y profesores. Desde la Academia de Inglés de la Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias, docentes de todas las unidades regionales diseñan materiales innovadores alineados a la nueva escuela mexicana con un enfoque centrado en el estudiante. Durante 2 días, convergen ponencias, talleres, paneles y espacios de networking que fortalecen esta comunidad de práctica y vinculación académica internacional. Desde Sinaloa para el mundo, con el respaldo de ANUYES, Michigan Language Assessment y la University of Monterey Bay, California, comienza el primer Foro Internacional de Enseñanza del Inglés. Welcome.
Después de este video de presentación, las invitamos a todos y a todas, por favor, a que enciendan sus cámaras para proceder a la foto oficial de este importante evento académico. Así es que si nos acomodamos un poquito, nos enderezamos, que salga bien la cámara, pero hay que dejar el registro de este evento tan importante y que este primer foro internacional sea el primero de toda una carrera académica. Entonces, ¿nos apoyas, Gemma, por favor, con la fotografía oficial? Tú dices 3, 2, 1.
Unos segundos.
Perfecto. ¿Tú nos indicas, Gemma?
Listo.
Ok. Bueno, muchísimas gracias a todas y a todos por su participación en esta fotografía oficial del recuerdo. Y damos paso ahora al inicio de nuestro programa académico. Muchísimas gracias a las autoridades que hoy nos acompañaron, a los vicerrectores, a las personas que nos acompañan de ANUYES, de Michigan Language y a todos aquellos que se dieron la oportunidad de estar en este evento histórico que lo que hoy inicia continúe académicamente. Y con mucho gusto cedo el uso de la voz a la maestra Diana Velázquez, quien fungirá como moderadora en este evento. Maestra Diana.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, entonces, muchísimas gracias. Excelente día.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, welcome to our session, The What of English Learning in UAS High School Classrooms, a Critical Look. We are honored to have today with us PhD Jorge Antonio Aguilar Rodriguez, and we are glad to introduce our star speaker today. Jorge Aguilar holds a bachelor's degree in ELT and a master's degree in teacher training for ELT from University College of St. Mark and St. John, and a PhD in educational leadership and policy studies from Arizona State University. He has been involved in English teaching and teacher training, as well as in the evaluation and design of pre-service and in-service English language teacher education programs. He has also been a professor at the BA at Centro de Estudio de Idiomas of Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa. His research and professional interests include collaborative teacher development, teacher language awareness, and pedagogical competence, competency-based education, and the impact of language curriculum and leadership on teacher and student learning, and the design of remote teacher education materials. We will start today with Jorge's presentation, and at the end, we will have 10 minutes for questions and answers, and we will be selecting a choice of those questions. And well, Jorge Aguilar, the audience is yours. Dr. Jorge, you may start.
Yeah, ready. Okay. There was a problem with the system here. Sorry about that. Okay. So I said, good morning, everybody. Welcome to my talk. It's really great to see so many known faces, people that already know. Okay. But it's also good to see people that I don't know. That means that you're very interested in what is going on in the world of language teaching, particularly what is really going on in English teaching in our university, and as specifically at Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias, Programas de Inglés, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for organizing this event. I think this is very important. I think it's of paramount important that these kinds of academic events are organized often so we have a chance to become familiar with what is going on in the world of language teaching and learning. Okay, let us start. If you look at the title of my talk, The What of English Learning at UAS High School Classrooms, a Critical Look. It's actually, this talk is going to focus on the what students are learning, or what we want students to learn, and what we want or we should be offering the students as the what, the content, the skills, the knowledge that they should be getting in order to become successful in whatever the curricula states that they should be successful in, okay? Let us start with the first one here, okay? Okay. What is the purpose of my talk? Okay, let me just, I should be, I think, okay, got it. No, I'm not getting it. Okay, so what is the purpose of the conference? To reflect on what was high school students are learning now, to take a look at new language frameworks, and to become familiar with what is going on in the world with regard to the language we use and how we use it today. That's very important. Do we know, as teachers of English, as curriculum designers, as a language institution administrators and leaders, what is going on in the world in terms of how language is being used today and how we use it today as well? I think that's the essence of my talk today. And it's actually a proposal as well. Okay, I'm having a little problem here. Just hold it. How do I? Okay. I just can make it work. Okay, key questions. There are some fundamental questions that we keep in mind, especially for educators, okay? Something that you should know is that I'll be asking a lot of questions. I'll be asking you a lot of paramount questions, okay? Of course, we don't have a chance to interact. That is going to be until the end in the question and answer section. But I'd like you to think about these questions, because those are the simple, fundamental, but the most important questions for language educators or anyone involved in language education. Okay, the first question is, of course, what are students going to learn? Okay, how often do we ask that question? What are my students going to learn today? And not the question that what pages am I going to cover in the book today, or how many activities am I going to ask students to learn today? But the most important question that we should keep in mind is the what question. What are students going to learn? And of course, a second fundamental question is, how are they going to learn what students are supposed to learn? Okay, so those are very basic questions that are often overlooked. And of course, we have a third question: how we will find out if the students have actually achieved the what? Okay, so we usually tend to think about exams and assessment at the end of the course, in the middle of the course, at the end of the month. Okay, but what about on an everyday basis? How do we find out if the students have actually achieved the what? Okay, so my talk today is going to focus on this question, on the what. What are prepa students supposed to be learning in the classrooms on an everyday basis? Okay, this is not working okay. That was, okay, I think I need to hide some of the information. Sorry about that. It is like, it's supposed to be the Vista Moderador, but it's not working. Just give me a second, please. Okay, I'll just continue like this. One of the questions that we should keep in mind most of the time, especially curriculum designers, language institution leaders and managers, and of course teachers, and everybody involved in education, in our case, involved in language education. Elmore, a very experienced, recognized American educational researcher, came to the conclusion that something which is ignored and a question that is often overlooked is, what is the right thing to do in the settings where we work? So an important question to ask here, what is the right thing to do in terms of what is it that students are learning. So in other words, what students are learning is the right thing to do. Are they learning the right thing that they should be learning? So another big question here is, so what is the right thing? What is the right thing that students should be learning? Of course, in the settings where you work, in the settings where we work, Centro de Idiomas, escuelas particulares, escuelas públicas, escuelas preparatorias de la UAS, of course, everywhere. And this is about education. Keep that in mind. So, it sounds so obvious, but as I always say, we got to make the obvious even more obvious. What is the right thing that we should be doing in our schools, in our language programs, in our English programs, particularly? Okay. So let's keep this in mind. So, what is the right thing to do? Now, guys, that change is inevitable. Change is constant. Actually, Heraclitus says so many years ago that the only constant in life is change. And you are aware, I am aware, everybody is aware that the world is changing every single second. Change is ongoing, change is paramount. And Sheryl Sandberg said very intelligently that we cannot change what we are not aware of. And once we are aware, we cannot help but change. So hopefully, I decided to participate in this forum because I want to make you aware of the fact that we need to change. We need to keep up with the changes that are going on. Not only the changes that are going on in the world, but the changes that are going on in language education, English language education, but also the changes the language is suffering. Languages are changing, and the way we use language is also changing. So let's keep that in mind. The change is a permanent thing. There is no way we can deny the fact that change is there all the time. It's actually surrounding everything, there is a new world order, and one of the characteristics of the new world order is ongoing change. So change. Changing what? I think we should be aware that there are a lot of changes in technology and cybersecurity, geopolitics. There is a lot of change going on every single day. Global economy and trade, culture, society, of course, there are changes. Okay. And you know what one of the problems is? That some people have stayed in the past. They're not keeping up to date. They're outdated in so many different ways. So an important question here is, am I as a teacher keeping up with the changes? Am I as a curriculum designer keeping up with the changes that are going on in the world? Am I as a language institution manager leader keeping up with the changes that are going on in the world? If not, I encourage you, I invite you to keep those in mind and to see if the work that we're doing is actually keeping up with the changes going on in the world. Now, but there is another change. What do you think it is? Very important change. Of course, let me give you 2 seconds, 3 seconds to think about that. I'm sure, I'm really sure, and I can guarantee that you actually guessed it. Yes, language. Language is changing, guys. Research is really impressive. It's really impressive. Language is changing not every day. No way. Language is changing every single second. New words are being coined. Old words are getting new meanings and new uses. New words are being invented, to say it like that, okay? So language is undergoing very important changes. And the problem is that we are still teaching our students old English, okay? So what are the challenges then? what is going on in the world, but what is going on with language? Are we up to date with how language is used in the world? Are we teaching the students that kind of language? So an important question that I'd like to ask you right now, what kind of world are you preparing your English students for? Or are you actually preparing your students to pass examinations? And what is the point preparing students to pass an examination? Does pass an examination mean that they're going to be able to use the language in real world situations, scenarios, circumstances, context, and settings? I don't think so. I could share my experience with you. You know, when I was, some of you know my experience as a language learner. Of course, ya no soy un jovencito, ¿verdad? But the idea is when I was a student at Centro Idiomas for 7 trimesters. I was so proud because I got very good grades, you know, as a language student. I went to Tucson, Arizona, and what? I wasn't able to communicate. So the question is, what are we teaching our students? Are students being able to use what they're actually learning? So language is an important change. So let's keep up with how language is changing and how people actually use it in a real context. So a new view of language. I know that if somebody can ask you the question, what is language? Most of you, if not all of you, are going to answer a tool for communication. Dan, no, please. Language is not only a tool for communication, it's more than that. It's a very important tool, but not only a tool for communication. Let's look at this one here, okay? Language is not just a tool for communication. It is also a resource for creative thought. Look at that, creation. Isn't the world now asking for creativity? If you look at the number of books that have been published on creativity, you'll be amazed. A framework for understanding the world. How can we understand the world if we are not using the language as the way it is being used right now? A key to new knowledge in human history. Okay, so how can we acquire new, relevant, meaningful, significant knowledge and become aware of how human history is being constructed every day if the way we look at language is obsolete, is antique, old, está empolvadita, right? And of course, language is also a source of pleasure and inspiration. So this is the new view of language, my dear colleagues, and everybody watching my talk right now. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Language is not just a tool for communication. It's more than that. It's a very important tool. It's a very important instrument that can widen the personal, professional, and of course, the educational horizons of everybody in the world today. Okay, language ever changing. Language is an entity that is suffering, undergoing changes all the time. Yes, of course. And we responsible and in charge of running language programs, designing curriculum, planning lessons, teaching lessons, assessing and designing tests. We got to keep in mind the language is ever changing, is always changing, is going, suffering changes all the time. You know, the BBC says that language is constantly adapting and changing to reflect our changing lives, experiences, and cultures. Keep that in mind. So again, let me ask you the question. What kind of language are you teaching your students? Up-to-date or outdated language? Language change enables us to accommodate new ideas, inventions, and technologies. Look at that. Do I understand technological language? No. Do I understand new ideas? Sometimes the more I read, and believe me that I read a great deal, and I usually read a variety of text, written text. Sometimes I find the language changing a great deal and changing in very positive and interesting ways. So let's keep that in mind, please. Now, language today. So what is going on with language today? What kind of language are you teaching your students? What kind of language is in the textbooks that we're using? What kind of language am I teaching to complement what the textbook is offering students? And what kind of language am I exemplifying as a teacher? Well, what kind of language isn't the English language program curriculum? Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Those are, I told you at the beginning that I'll be asking you a lot of questions. And updated or outdated English language skills. So another important question here for everybody is, okay, am I teaching my students knowledge? Am I helping my students to acquire and develop new knowledge about English? Or am I helping the students develop updated, innovative, useful, helpful, and needed language skills? Okay, keep that in mind. Those are very important questions that we have to keep in mind, that we need to be aware of. Skills, knowledge and theory, practice. What am I asking the students to? What am I preparing the students? I'm sorry, the question, what kind of world am I preparing the students for? Am I actually equipping my students with the language skills, not knowledge, the language skills they will use to be applied in very particular contexts? The question of where plays a very important role here. Not only the what, but also the where. Where are students going to use the what? Where are students going to put the what into practice? Okay, so new language skills? Says, Jorge, what are you talking about by new language skills? What do you mean by that? Are you ready for a test? And I'd like you to be very honest with yourselves, okay? You can fail the test, no problem. If you fail the test, that would be wonderful. If you pass the test, I'll be really amazed. First question, do you use or do you teach your students these skills? Number one, do you teach your students viewing skills in your English classes? Even your German classes, your Japanese classes, your French classes, etc. Okay? Are you teaching your students those skills? The question is, no, why not? Yes, congratulations. Next question. Are you teaching your students mediation skills? If you say yes, I'll be surprised positively. If you say no, that's perfect. This is a new opportunity for you to start thinking about mediation skills. What about, do you teach your students written interaction skills? Because we usually talk about interaction, right? But that's a spoken interaction. Of course, we ask the students to ask and answer questions, to do simulations, interactions, etc. But what about written interactions? Are we teaching our students how to interact in writing? Next question. Are you teaching your students digital reading skills? Or do you only use the reading activities in the textbooks, which tend to be very repetitive? It's almost the same kind of reading activities. Read and answer the questions. Of course, there is the pre-reading task, of course, but usually, what are the typical questions of a reading task? Yes or no, true or false, complete the statements. But what about digital reading skills? And I want to share with you a textbook about the importance of teaching the students now in the 21st century. Sorry, I shouldn't be using 21st century. 21st century is too big. It's 100 years, right? What about using in the age of artificial intelligence? So now, today. And what about the next question? Are you teaching your students multimodality skills? Or do you, as a teacher of English, use multimodality skills? So, guys, the world is different now. The way language is being used today is very different from 10 years ago, from yesterday, from some weeks ago, of course, especially from 20 or 30 years ago. And the problem is that we're still using and teaching old English skills that are in a way they're not going to be able to put into practice anywhere because they're not required anymore. Okay. And last but not least, okay, least but not last, okay, what about visualization skills? Are you helping your students develop their visualization skills? The question is, if the answer is no, why not? So, George is telling us a bunch of lies here. He just invented his skills. No way, Jose. Let me share with you some evidence. Oh, it's not moving. Okay, here you are. Okay, I'm not lying to you guys. Look at this textbook, okay, by Routledge, Multimodality in English Language Learning. Multimodality has become a huge, enormous, gigantic, humongous thing in learning, and specifically in language learning. And I mean English language learning, French language learning, German, Japanese, Portuguese, you name it, okay? So the question is, why are we ignoring in our English programs the multimodality skill? And look at this one, skim, dive, surface, teaching digital reading skills, okay? Reading a paper-based text, reading a print text is very different from reading digital texts, and it required a different set of digital reading skills. Okay, so we are used to talking about scanning, skimming, reading between lines, making inferences, predicting, etc., etc. But when it comes to digital reading, we got new digital reading skills, different ones from the traditional ones. The question is, why are we ignoring or overlooking this type of a skill? I mean, students have the right to develop this kind of skills. Because now we read what? We read digital books. If you can look at my cell phone, I got about 35 digital books, and I read on the phone. I don't read the print book, okay? But let's be honest here. Reading print books have a lot of advantages which are different from reading digital books. And of course, students have to read sometimes articles, digital books, digital chapters. I talked to several teachers from different facultades in La UAS, and they're now asking their students to read articles and chapters from books and books online and digital books, of course, digital text. So the question is, why aren't we teaching our students how to develop their digital reading skills? Just one more example. Visualization skills for reading comprehension. Again, students can make the most of the reading experience if they can start using their visualization skills. Guys, so I'm giving you evidence that I'm not lying to you. The way language behaves, the way language is used now, the nature of language is different today from what it was last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. There are new skills that are being used in the world today. The question is, why aren't we teaching our students those skills? Why not? Okay. Now, oops. Sorry. Oh my God. Just give me a second. Okay, so did you pass this test? If not, congratulations. So that means that you are now aware of this. Remember the code that I read to you a few minutes ago? Of course, now that I'm aware, my only chance is to start doing something about it. Okay? The first step in changing something is becoming aware. There's something exists and that I need to become aware with that thing that exists, that I didn't know it exists before. It existed before. Okay? Okay. So as teachers, as curriculum designers, as language program leaders and managers, okay, we got to keep aware that just as the world is quickly changing around us, so is the language we use and how we use it. Okay? We got to be aware of this. The language we use, how we use it, is changing every single way. Okay? So what are we going to do about that? Are we going to keep teaching our students or giving the students the opportunity to become familiar with old language and to use the language in old ways? Or are we going to now start making changes in the curricula, in the way we plan, the way we teach, and the way we assess our students? Okay. So an important question here now, remember what I told you, it's not the 21st century. Now what we're living is the age of artificial intelligence. So let me repeat this question to you. What language should WAS high school students learn in the English language learning, in the English language classroom, in the age of artificial intelligence? And let me repeat the question here in these different ways. What language should Central Idiomas students learn in the English classroom in the age of artificial intelligence? What language should any English students from any English program learn in the age of artificial intelligence? Okay. Now, 1961 or today, 1961 or today, past or present, what do we need? You guys listen to this very carefully, okay? Get rid of your earwax. Listen very carefully. 1961, what happened in 1961? What do you think happened in that year? You know what? The 4 skills language framework was proposed and established. In 1961, think about that. 64 years ago. Some people say there was in 1960. Some people say there was in 1961, whatever year. But the four skills language framework was established and proposed in 64 years ago. But of course, you're not teaching the four skills anymore, are you? Or yes? Okay. So think about that. The four skills was established in 1961. And the big question, remember, I told you, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. I'd like you to think about that. Use your thinking skills, your reflection skills, your reality skills. Okay? Do the use of the four skills reflect how language is used today? For example, remember the first question in the test I gave you? Viewing skills. Are the viewing skills included in any of the four skills? Listening, yes. Okay. What about viewing? And remember, when you're viewing a video, when you're watching a video, it's not only the sound, but it's also the visual tools that we use to make meaning, to create meaning, to understand what the video is saying, to understand what's going on in the video. What about digital reading in the four skills? No. What about visualization skills? No. What about mediation skills? No. The new skills, the skills being used in the era of artificial intelligence today, now, currently, so the four skills, I'm sorry, allow me to say that the four skills are obsolete, are old, empolvaditos. So the question is, why do we continue teaching our students only the four skills? What is the proposal? What is the new thing? If we keep our students in mind, if we are helping the students, we are equipping, preparing the students to face the challenges of the real world, of very specific context. By teaching them the four skills, are we doing them a favor? Are we responsible enough to still focus on the four skills only and ignore the skills that are being used today? Mediational, interactional, viewing, etc., etc., etc. Multimodality. Okay. So, guys, come on, let's be responsible. The Common European Framework Reference published the companion volume in the year 2020. Okay. Why that it published a companion volume? Let's keep in mind that a Common European Framework Reference published the first framework, I think it was in the year 2000 or 2001, more or less. I don't remember exactly, sorry about that. But they just published, and because in research, recent is not today or yesterday. Recent is a few years in the past, going into the past. So saying, hey, we need to publish a companion volume. Do you know why? Because now language, the way language behaves, the way language is used in the world today is different. So the European framework, the framework references for language, has to change. We need to update it. Tenemos que actualizarlo, So the other one is, even though it's a very good document, it's a very good book that provides descriptors and information about learning, teaching, and assessment, and how to do that in order to really help students become successful users of English. Look at that, successful users, not learners of English. We want students to become users of English, not learners of English. Okay? So what are they proposing? They are proposing, but before I share with you what they're actually proposing, let me share with you this quote, which I got actually from the companion volume of the Common European Framework. Said, replaces the traditional model of the four skills, which has increasingly proved inadequate in capturing the complex reality of communication today. So what this quote is saying is the four skills are old. We need to update. We need to keep up to date. Necesitamos modernizarnos, in other words, okay? And they also say that the companion volume underlines a shift towards a complex vision of the situated, interactional, and interrelated nature of languages in the world today. Okay? That's what I told you at the beginning, what I've been telling you throughout my talk, saying that language is different. The way we use language is different. So what are we going to do? We, curriculum designers, teachers, and institutions leaders and managers. And of course, educational authorities as well. The organization proposed by the Common European Framework Reference is closer to real life language use. Probably by now you understand what my main message is, right? So let's get rid of the four skills. Well, actually, the new framework proposed by the Common European Framework doesn't get rid of the four skills, but it complements them in a way that takes into account how language is used today. And of course, let me emphasize the point of the new language skills, not knowledge, skills. Okay, so in a way, this is a visual representation of the modes of communication. So the message here is, let's get rid of the four skills framework, which the Common European Framework says it is inadequate. It is inappropriate. In other words, it's not very useful. Okay? We need to adopt what really fits how language is used today and how people use language today. So of course, I'm not going to talk about each of the modes. It will take me an hour. That's your homework. That's your homework assignment. If you want to become aware of the modes. Now, by the way, the Common European Framework and the companion volume you can download it from the internet as for free. It's a very complex, long document, but it's very interesting and is necessary as well. They have reception, which involves reading and listening, production, which involves speaking and writing, and interaction, which involves reading, speaking, listening, and writing. Okay, and of course, mediation, which is a new skill, and they will actually use it every day, especially when you're working and talking to other people. That's like, what the hell is mediation at the mediation skill? Remember one of the questions that I asked you in the test? Okay, so this is a visual representation, and that's in the book. That's on the companion volume, okay? Of course, I just got it, but you got the communicative language competence, which are quite old, but we have the communicative language activities, or what they call the four modes of communication: the reception, production, interaction, and mediation. So I encourage you to download the book and don't read it. Just scan it, okay, or skim it, or whatever you want to do, okay? So just get a glimpse of it so you can become with The book actually contains a new proposal, but it actually contains the methodological proposal with an action research methodology, an action-oriented, methodology. Okay. So, a big question that we need to answer as soon as possible is, which language framework should West High School English program follow? Or which language framework should Centro de Idiomas English program follow? Or which language framework should any language institution English program follow? Okay. Are we going to continue favoring the four skills, or are we going to bring about important changes in the way we design the curriculum, plan, teach, and assess our students? And of course, the question on which this conference revolves around is, what should West High School students learn in their English lessons in the age of artificial intelligence? What? Okay. Simple questions, but questions of paramount importance. Huge, gigantic, humongous, immense questions. So, what? The four skills? The four modes of communication? Or academic skills for the undergraduate studies? Because something that we need to keep in mind is escuelas preparatorias. What are escuelas preparatorias for? Mainly, of course, there are many reasons and many goals, of course, but preparatorias porque los estamos preparando para sus estudios de licenciatura, undergraduate studies, right? So the question is, what are we preparing West high school students for? What are we preparing them for? Hopefully, we are not preparing them for to pass exams. Okay, we don't want that. We are preparing them to develop specific skills that they can actually put into action in very specific places, situations, settings, circumstances, scenarios, etc. Or Clio. I'm sure you're familiar with Clio. If you're not familiar, start reading about it. There is a lot of information on the internet. Okay. So the what question needs to be answered. And of course, etc. There might be more options. Okay. That's not my job to answer it. But if I can contribute in some way, we can look at the options and see what's the best answer to this question. What? The what question. So where? I decided to include this slide, guys, because we usually overlook and ignore this question. In what context should students be able to use the language skills they develop in the WAS high school classroom, in the Centro Idiomas classrooms, in the language institutions, private or public classrooms, okay? What context? That's the question that we got it. Why am I teaching my students this particular English skill? Because they're going to be able to use it in a particular context, in a particular situation, circumstance, setting, etc. Okay? If I don't ask myself that question, I'm making a big mistake. Because then I'm preparing students to pass an examination. And passing an examination doesn't mean that the students are going to be able to use it in a very particular context or situation. So the question of what is important, but the question of where is also very important, of paramount importance. Okay, conclusions. Very important conclusions. Conclusion number one. We cannot deny the fact that there is a new world order. Things are changing every single day. There are hundreds of books published on how the world is changing, the new world order. And there's another conclusion that we can reach here. Language is ever changing. How are we going to keep up with the changes the languages are undergoing in order to keep my students, to teach our students up-to-date language? There are new language models of framework. Today, I only touched on the 4 skills and the 4 new modes of communication proposed by the Common European Framework, but there are other frameworks as well. Which ones should we pay attention to if we want to bring about changes in the way we teach English to our students? There are new language skills that are needed. There are new language skills, not that I need it. There are new language skills that are being used in the world today. What are those new language skills? How can I take them into practice? How can I become aware? How can I become familiar with those new language skills so I can bring them into the classroom? I can teach them to my students so they can start using them in the real world. Okay? And sorry about this, guys. I decided to include this conclusion, which might seem out of place, because I know that you love teaching grammar and that you mostly teach grammar in your lessons. And then John Truscott, and this is one quote, but there are so many research studies that have shown that there is no empirical evidence, no research evidence that explicit grammar teaching promotes second language acquisition. And I can speak from experience, okay? The fact that when I went to Tucson, Arizona the first time, I knew a lot of grammar, okay? Was that any useful to communicate? No. Did I solve my communication problems when I went there? No. So what are we going to do? Are we going to continue teaching grammar in our classes? And do you know why teachers of English teach grammar? Because they feel important, because they know it. Students don't know it. And because they're used to teaching grammar, they've been teaching grammar for so many years now. So the conversations in schools between teachers says, oye, ya viste the present perfect. No, ya me eché, me falta the present perfect progressive, the present progressive, et cetera, and then, but they hardly ever talk about, hey, have you look at with your students how to ask for permission, how to read digital books, how to use mediation skills? No, we mainly talk about grammar teaching and grammar structures, okay? So sorry about that, but I thought it was very important for you to become that. It's not what I think, is what research has shown and continue showing. Okay, we're about to finish right now. So the question that I have already asked you, so what kind of world are we preparing the students for? Please take it with you as a homework assignment. Look at, analyze, critically look at what you are actually doing in your classrooms. So what kind of world are you preparing the students for? And what should WAS high school students learn in their English lessons today? And we can substitute not only WAS high school students, all language institutions, private or public. What? Remember the question of what should they be learning? Is that any useful? How are we going to incorporate how language is used today and the nature of language itself into our language programs, into our classes? How? Thank you very much. Now I'm ready for questions and answers. I don't know how we're going to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Jorge. Yes, we're ready to move on for the questions and answers section. And we have some questions here that I'm going to read to you, okay?
Okay, thank you, Diana. I'm going to accept questions in English and in Spanish if they want to, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
We have teacher Daniel Piña was asking about the full name of the book that you mentioned before. If you could share the full name of the book.
Which book?
Teacher Daniel, if you could elaborate on your question.
If that's the Common European Framework for Languages, the companion book, that's on the internet and that's for free, you can download it. It's the Common European Framework for Languages, Learning, Teaching, and Assessment, companion, but make sure it is the companion volume. It was published in the year 2020. Common European Framework for Languages, Learning, Teaching, Assessment, companion volume. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, Mariela Guerrero Amarillas, she's asking what strategies do you recommend for teachers to critically take ownership of the English programs rather than just applying them mechanically?
Okay, that's a big question, okay? We know, and I know from experience, and I've done a little bit of informal action research, and I know that, that's a very interesting question. Teachers, I dare to say that teachers are not teaching English to their students. The teachers are not really helping the students develop the skills that they need. Rather, they're actually covering the books. And that's a very different story. That's a very easy job to do. Open your book to page 42, do activity 7. Okay, now let's check the answers. Let's move on to activity 8. Do it, and let's check the answers. That is not language teaching. And the kind of learning that kind of approach or strategy is using is very limited, really. Okay, so what kind of strategies? Teacher training, teacher education, teacher learning groups. I don't know, different strategies, different approaches to teacher training. That's the way, okay? And I know it's a challenge, but something that we need to keep in mind. I remember when I was doing my PhD, I was required to do a book review and I had to publish it. And I remember a quote from the second page of the book I reviewed, okay? And there was, teachers, without a doubt, are the most important agents of change in the world today. Okay, and the teachers, without a doubt, are the most important agents of change today, but teachers require ongoing training. And listen to this very carefully. Research says that for teachers to be effective as teachers, that means to really help students learn something useful, they need at least how many hours of teacher training do teachers need in a school year, during the school years, to really help the students learn something effective or something useful? Don't answer the question because we don't have the time. But I can tell you that at least 40 hours, ideally more, 40 hours during the school year, okay? 40 hours of teacher development, teacher training for teachers to really become effective educators of their students. So, Mariela, thank you very much for asking the question. Yeah, and there are more strategies, but I would just focus on that question, on that strategy, teacher training. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. We have another question from Aline Nunez. She's asking, what would you say to a student who only wants to be capable of reading English and he's not interested on the rest of the skills?
That's great. Okay. If that's a skill that he will only use, let's say for undergraduate studies. But that's the point today. Okay, that's the point today. I mean, why do I need to learn the 4 skills where I only personally or academically or educationally or professionally or related to work? I only need to read to develop my reading skills. Why do I need to work on my listening and writing and speaking if I only need to read in English? Okay. So the big question here, I mean, I'm sure that you are familiar with needs analysis. Okay. Sometimes there is no way that you can do a needs analysis because of the variety of students that come to your language programs. But I think if a student only needs to that, well, why not offer reading comprehension skills? Why not offer reading writing skills courses? Why not offer courses on speaking skills specifically? Why do we need to teach students all of the skills? The question is here, and that's a very important question. For example, in Prepa was the English program consists of 192 hours of English. What can the students achieve in that period of time? Okay. And another important question here is, why should the Prepa program teach students the skills that Prepa students were supposed to learn in secundaria? Why does the Prepa have to fill up with the skills that they should have learned in primaria or in secundaria? Okay. And let me share this experience. You know, Renzo, coordinador de la licenciatura, and I did a little bit of research when Centro de Idiomas, encabezados por el liderazgo de Rigo, iban a proponer el nuevo programa de inglés, una modificación a las políticas universitarias, y veíamos los programas de inglés de algunas facultades. No voy a decir nombre de facultades, pero algunas facultades les comenzaban a enseñar a los alumnos los números del 1 al 20, los colores de las ocupaciones. Es, what the hell? They are in an undergraduate program. Why do they have to learn colors and numbers and occupations, stuff like that? So, yo sé que una de las preocupaciones curriculares de la universidad es que ningún programa debe de cubrir o tratar de llenar aquellos espacios que no se llenaron en primaria o en secundaria, si es para el caso de la prepa o licenciatura, si es para el caso, etcétera, okay? So that's a very important question. Thank you for sharing. That gave me the opportunity to share this information and experience with you, okay? One more question and we need to stop, okay? Just one more, please.
Actually, I chose Alonso Gonzalez's comment, which is not exactly a question, but he says, we should move away from asking, did I cover the material? And instead focus on how did my students create meaning from the material today? And how did my choices support that process?
Okay. If Alonso, by meaning, he's saying skills, wonderful, okay? Because, again, let me emphasize the point. It's like, ¿qué es lo que están aprendiendo? ¿Qué están aprendiendo los alumnos en mis clases? Es, what skills are they developing? Because if they're not able to apply what they're learning, why are they learning that? Okay. Thank you, Alonso. Good to hear from you, buddy. Okay. Les agradezco, les mando un abrazote con mucho cariño y cálido a todos los que conozco y a los que no conozco también. Estoy a sus órdenes para que se ofrezca. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this session. And of course, we thank you. We truly thank you, Jorge, for your presentation. And on behalf of Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa en Dirección General de Escuelas Preparatorias, we extend our sincere thanks for your valuable participation as a speaker at the Language Teaching International Forum 2025. Your contribution helps in the professional development of our teachers and the academic strengthening of our community. Thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge with us. This brings to an end, and we will see you all in the next session, which will start at 11:10, because we will have a short break for the nationwide mock drill that we will have for the earthquakes, okay? So thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful morning.
All right, I'm testing my mic. Can everybody show me thumb up if you can hear me well? Right. Can somebody send me thumb up or next? This is just a test. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mahatma, and on behalf of the Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa, I'm delighted to be your hostess for today's panel discussion. The goal of this panel is to explore and discuss several topics related to innovation and methodologies. We have a group of panelists here to share their insights with us. Thank you. And I'd also like to give a special welcome to a Record 2 PhD, Diana Velasquez, who will be summarizing the key points at the end. So before we begin, I'd like to quickly explain the format. For our panelists here, okay, pay close attention. You will have about 10 minutes to present your key points. While they're speaking, your attendees, feel free to write your questions in the chat. Please indicate which panelist your questions are for or your question is for. Remember, at the end. After all of the presentations, we will have a Q&A section where I will read a selection of your questions to our speakers, all right? So please indicate which speaker is this question for. With that being said, we can start. To begin, I'd like to introduce our first panelist. She will be speaking about gamification. Be more specific, Game On, boosting English learning through a gamified classroom at WAS High School. This is in charge of teacher Marisol Acosta Ham. Teacher, are you ready?
Ready, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, your time starts now. 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being here and authorities for allowing me to bring you this information today. Okay, there it is. Well, first of all, we all know, I think, that teaching English can be challenging at times, and especially if we're working with teenagers and in public high schools where classes can be large and numerous. Well, learners often feel indifferent to learning the language, and they might also feel discouraged at times when they're learning through traditional methods. Hence, there is a need for innovative approaches that can enhance both teaching and learning processes. Now, allow me to begin with the introduction. Next slide, please. The concept of gamification, and gamification has been defined as the use of game elements in non-game contexts. That means that those game elements can transform different tasks into something that is rewarding for participants. It also helps increase motivation and increases participation as well. Now, why is gamification important or relevant nowadays? Well, it has gained popularity in the last decade as a technique that encourages and motivates players through this engaging environment, through the use of game elements in different contexts. Now, who is using gamification? Well, gamification can be found across many corporate services and products. Important and big companies are relying on gamification with the aim of increasing user engagement and enhance motivation through this application of game elements, such as dynamics, mechanics, and components of gamification. Now, it is important to discuss a little about some of the misconceptions around the concept of gamification. And we can say that what gamification is not just about turning different tasks into games. It is not just about incorporating a game here and there in a different setting. It is also not just about giving points, badges, or using leaderboards. It also goes beyond the marketing field and beyond customer engagement programs. It's about recognizing what games can do and that games can be powerful and using those principles that can make games fun and motivating to improve learning in this case or other activities. Now, it is important to discuss or to talk about what game elements are. And first of all, game elements are those specific items or those features that can provide an experience that is similar to a real game. And I'm going to be referencing this framework from Werbach and Hunter, and they have categorized those game elements into this hierarchy pyramid. In the beginning or on top of the pyramid, we can see that we have this aspect, which is very important in any gamified setting, which are dynamics. And dynamics are those storylines or those narratives that are gonna motivate players. Then in the middle of the pyramid, we have another aspect, which is mechanics. And mechanics are those engagement drivers, those elements that are going to encourage participants to keep going. We have things such as challenges, cooperation, feedback, the use of rewards, having transactions, among others. And at the bottom of the pyramid, we can see that we have components, and components are those specific features that can be used within the dynamics and mechanics. So that means that those are the elements that students or players are going to be interacting with every day. Now, gamification in learning, well, a classroom can be gamified by incorporating different activities that can represent a challenge for students in order to obtain rewards. So we can turn lessons into something exciting or enjoyable for students that can eventually lead to meaningful learning. And it also helps promote collaboration, problem solving, and creativity. It is about creating an enjoyable and fun environment for students. Now, what can we do to gamify our class? Well, first of all, following the Werbach and Hunter's framework, the first thing that we can do is to set an experience for our students, to establish a clear goal, to have a theme, or to create our own narratives. It's about the big picture experience. You can come up with things that you think are going to be suitable for your students. For instance, you can say that you are at an English survival challenge, or that you are trying to master the English language. And creating a backstory can also help. For instance, you can say that you are language explorers collecting knowledge gem, just to mention something, an example. As a second step, it is recommended to establish your system, your own rules and systems that can drive engagement. For instance, you can set points for different things, such as behavior, for completing tasks, for turning tasks into challenges, and provide weekly feedback is also important. You can set points for different things, such as participation, for working in teams, for turning activities on time. You can even have students unlock different levels and assign new privileges. You can have things such as grammar puzzles, speaking missions. You can have vocabulary competitions. You can even have a units boss at the end of each unit, and have a class review game so that students can work and defeat this boss. And having weekly score updates is important so that students can see their own progress in the game. Next slide, please. As a third step, it is important to use those components that are visual for students. For instance, you can use elements such as badges. You can update your leaderboards constantly or weekly at least. You can have students create or have their own avatars. And as I have said earlier, you can give badges for things such as grammar tasks, for speaking activities, and you can even have your own virtual store. Next one, please. Now, I wanted to share with you some of the elements that I have worked with in the past. And first of all, I created these infographics in order to let students know what this new dynamic is going to be like, that we were going to have different competitions, challenges, and we had something that we called experience points that students were able to accumulate by completing different tasks, different challenges, different competitions. And these experience points were redeemed at the end of the unit by different store items. You can have things such as an extra point on the unit's grade, homework pass, an absence or a tardy pass, whatever you want to use. And we have given badges such as for participation, such as newbie for students who are just starting, bookworm, and game master, you know, for those students who are constantly participating. And you can even work with online templates or create your own materials. I also wanted to share with you that I have had a weekly trivia where I would send my students a question every Friday at 6 p.m. through a WhatsApp group, and they will get a question related to something that we had just started. And they were excited for this question. You can also have your own leaderboards and update this constantly or weekly so that students were able or are able to see their own progress and the badges that they had earned. Or you can even use simple things such as a spreadsheet. Some tips to adapt your current syllabus is to follow your learning goals and the objectives that you already have, and use the main topics and the main themes that you have in your lesson plans and in your lessons or throughout your program to define your own narrative. And you can always take current tasks and adapt them to fit this new gamified environment. Of course, online tools and platforms are always going to be helpful if technology is available to you. These are some of the websites that I have worked with in the past. And as a conclusion, we can say that gamifying your classroom doesn't require the use of high technology or expensive tools. You can start by setting your dynamics, your main theme, build out the mechanics, come up with your points or your rules and your own system. And then use those components that students are gonna be using and interacting with every day in order to make your classroom more dynamic and relevant. So which game element would you like to try in your class? Thank you.
Thank you so much, teacher Marisol, for that insightful presentation, and thank you for your 3-step guide on how to gamify our classrooms. All right, next up, we have our second panelist, which is teacher Josebelio Insunza, and he will be talking about the following: present and practice using WhatsApp to teach English, right?
Hi, hello, good morning, everybody. My topic is called Design of Inclusive and Active Learning Environments for Children in Language Programs. So I'm going to start by, first of all, saying hi to everyone. Good morning. It is an honor to be here at the First Language Teaching International Forum. Today, I will share with you some reflections and experiences on the design of inclusive and active learning environments for children in language programs. This topic is very close to my heart because I truly believe that education becomes meaningful when every child feels respected, supported, and valued. Now, I do have some background with working with high school students as well as junior high school. But in the mornings, I also work in an elementary school. This elementary school I work at is in a rural area. So as you might imagine, these situations are very specific. Not everybody is let's say at the same level as everybody would expect a class to be at. I'm just stalling time because I see my presentation is not in the screen. It's fine. Technical issues, probably. Should I continue? Yeah, I mean, I could continue without it. It's fine.
What about now?
Ah, there we go. Awesome. Thank you. Yes. All right. Next slide, please. Ah, there we go. So what is an inclusive environment, right? Now, an inclusive environment is more than just a classroom. It is a community where differences are celebrated and where every child, regardless of background or ability, has a voice. This is very important since we are coming from this awful time of remote teaching. If you've been teaching for longer than a couple of years, you remember these dark times of Zoom classes and asking students to participate and just to work. Not such an amazing experience, but now we are able to try to fix this problematic, right? How? Well, including everybody into the classes. It doesn't matter what age bracket we're talking about, if they're kids, if they're preteens, teenagers, young adults, whatever you may have, everybody was struck by this COVID situation, right? So inclusion is not only about physical presence, but about active participation. When children feel they belong, they learn better and they grow not only linguistically, but also socially and emotionally. Please, next slide. Okay. Why is it important? Now, we might have feel like this word inclusion. We've been bombarded with it for many, many years now, but it is honestly a very important situation. We need to, as the word mentions, we need to include everyone during the classes. It doesn't matter their background or their level of ability. Inclusion promotes linguistic development, but also teaches empathy, collaboration, and respect. Children learn that their ideas matter and they can contribute to something bigger than themselves. Now, don't get me wrong. When I mention children, I mean, even if we work with high school students, technically these guys are still children. So sometimes we've been dealing with these high school students or junior high school students as if they were adults. They are not adults. We need to treat them as such, as kids. This is especially crucial in language programs where communication is both the goal and the tool. Let's go with the next slide, please. Active methodologies. Thank you. Okay, so to achieve these active methodologies, we rely on active methodologies such as learning by doing, learning by collaborating, and learning by creating. Instead of memorizing isolated vocabulary, students work on projects that connect English to their own lives. This is nothing new. For us that we've been working as English teachers, we know that PBL exists. It's not that I'm discovering the hilo negro or anything of that matter, but we need to remember that as teachers, we are facilitators. We need to make sure students learn and apply their knowledge into actual objectives, into something already planned. So they use digital tools, drawing, singing, acting, role-playing, and engaging with their peers. Active methodologies allow students to construct knowledge, not just receive it. This is very important, constructing, the scaffolding, right? This is another word that we might hear everywhere nowadays, scaffolding. Next one, please. Projects that work. Now, this is the time for me to share some of my experiences, right? As I told you before, I work at Centro de Idiomas Navolato. So there I work as a teacher from Monday to Friday. I also work at PT on Saturdays, and during the mornings, I work at an elementary school, right? So I'm going to tell you about two of my personal projects that I took on this previous semester, right? The first one is called My Family is My Team. This one was one project that I developed with my fourth graders last semester. So I'm going to share a little bit of it with you. So this was a project where students explored the diversity of family structures, create family shields, and express belonging using the verb to be and some adjectives, right? Very simple stuff. This project strengthens both grammar and values. This is what I mean by including people. Not only include the students, try to include as much people as you can. Their family members is something we need to take on account. They're very important for students' growth. Now, another one is something that I used during my PC work days, right? So this is Values Wednesdays. This is something that I took on during implementing it using the Facebook page of PC Navolat. So this is a weekly post about reflecting on positive values and also recognizing negative behaviors. This helps children connect language with emotions, ethics, and community. Community, that's the word. That's something that I tried to implement also, community and engagement, asking people to engage in these posts, weekly posts, right? Both projects show that inclusion and active learning can coexist with language teaching goals. Next one, please. The benefits of inclusion. So, as I'm telling you, this is nothing new. We all know about it, but sometimes it's really good to refresh our collective memories, right? So the results of these practices are as follows. Students participate more, they collaborate naturally, they show respect for one another, and most importantly, they start to build a sense of community. The more connected everyone is, the better the rapport you have with your students and your learning community, the best results are going to get. You are going to get the best results out of it. Language learning then becomes more human, critical, and transformative. This is something we've been hearing a lot, right? Including everyone being more human, critical, and transformative, doing with the language, not only learning because of learning, not just because passing exams, actually putting things into practice. All right. The next one, please. Okay, how to promote it. We have adapting strategies to learning styles, use digital tools, foster empathy and respect. Thankfully, the previous participant taught a good deal about using digital tools, so I'm going to skip this part. Thank you. The next one. Time to close my participation, right? Inclusion makes education more human, critical, and transformative. Inclusion is not an extra element in education. It is the foundation that makes learning meaningful. Wow, 10 minutes. All right. Okay, I have 4 more lines, but we can end it here. It's fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, teacher Jose, for that presentation and sharing your perspectives on this one. And indeed, language learning should be inclusive as well as language teaching, right?
Yeah, thank you.
The title of your presentation was Design of Inclusive and Active Learning Environments for Children in Language Programs. Well delivered. All right. As our third panelist, we have teacher Aline Guadalupe Núñez Solís and Jaime Núñez Solís. The title of their presentation is Present and Practice Using WhatsApp to Teach English.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having us and the opportunity of sharing this with the first language teaching forum teachers and people who came to this forum. So let me say that in March 2020, the world's education system came to a halt because of the health emergency caused by COVID-19. This forced millions of teachers and students to rethink how to continue school activities, now in a virtual and remote way. In just a few days or weeks, in some cases, when the seriousness of the situation came clear, teachers had to turn to technology to find tools that would allow them to keep up with their daily lessons. During that time, many of us discovered platforms like Zoom or Google Meet. At the same time, Google Classroom and Moodle became very popular as options to keep the school year going, with the hope that things would be back to normal in just a couple of months. But reality turned out differently, and those weeks ended up of becoming more than a year of remote work. In this new reality, the cell phone became a key tool for thousands of students of the UAS system bachillerato, of the UAS bachillerato system, since it allowed almost instant communication with teachers. Today, we want to share our experience about how WhatsApp messaging became the main and in many cases, the only way to keep schools activities going. This was especially true in rural areas in the north of Sinaloa state, where the internet signal was weak or unstable, which made video calls impossible. On top of that, many students didn't know how to use platforms like Classroom or Moodle well enough, which made it harder to rely on them efficiently.
Okay. Can you show us the next slide, please? Thank you. Thank you. During the pandemic, we faced seriously technological gaps. As a response, this new form of remote teaching through WhatsApp was created. The idea started with a simple question. I asked myself, can I do on WhatsApp what I normally do in a face-to-face lesson? I went back to the basics. In a regular class, I would greet my student, ask them how they are feeling, and share the aim of the lesson. And yes, all of that was possible to do on WhatsApp. The next challenge was, how can I make my students work on a synchronous activity? I recall some strategies. I knew back then, particularly the Racias method. If you are not familiar with this, I'll explain it. As you can see in the slide, the Racias method focuses on the fluency through quick substitutions and transformation. The one that you're seeing right now is the substitution. For example, in a simple substitution, the teacher provides a sentence and each student changes one word. For example, the teacher can say, would you like to go to the movies with me? And a student may say, would you like to go to the park with me? And another student would say, would you like to go to the museum with me? And so on. So this is a transformation. The next slide will show us the transformation technique. On a transformation technique, you can change the previous one, please. Thank you. On a transformation technique, the teacher asks students to change, for example, a positive sentence into a negative sentence. For example, if the teacher says, we're close, a student may say, we are not close, and so on. Also, you can ask them to change an affirmative sentence into an interrogative sentence, depending on the teacher's request. With this in mind, I designed a lesson plan divided into 3 stages. Next slide, please. The lesson plan was divided into 3 stages: opening, development, and closure. I prepared a script with clear instructions in both English and Spanish to send during the chat. This way, the sessions became a real synchronous activity
with a date and a time. At first, I focus on writing. I provide templates, useful vocabulary, and examples. Students then created sentences by changing parts of the original model. While they were sending their texts and participations, I read the contributions, gave them private corrections. I asked them to rewrite and resubmit their sentences to the group chat, as you can see on these pictures. At the end of the session, just like in a face-to-face lesson, we said goodbye. Then I evaluated participation by sharing a checklist with names and the number of contributions. Can we see the next slide, please? Surprisingly, the activity also worked as a synchronously activity, since some students who couldn't not participate on time were allowed to send their sentences later. Next one, please. Next slide, please. To measure, here we have the way that I assess the activity. And can you show us the next slide, please? To measure the effectiveness of this work, we created a survey. The results shows that students found instructions easy to follow, and overall, they had a very positive opinion about the chat sessions. Next slide, please. To sum up, this form of remote work can be highly effective if there is a well-prepared lesson plan. It is crucial to anticipate problems, prepare a bilingual script with instructions, explanations, visuals, and vocabulary lists, and above all, provide timely feedback and assessment. And that's, I think we're done from here.
As I said at the beginning, we quickly realized that WhatsApp was the only way to connect with the students because it was cheaper than doing a 50 pesos OXXO recharge. And so for those students, we can work synchronously or asynchronously, because for students in the area that we work, that was El Fuerte municipio, it was really hard for them to connect to the virtual calls like Zoom or Google Meet. So WhatsApp became like a lifesaver for the students and for us to keep the community with the students.
And thanks so much. Thanks for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you for showing us how WhatsApp can help us teach, right? And it was necessary since we're in this digital era. All right, thank you so much both to you teachers. And now we have another panelist, and she's Yolanda Noemí Guerrero Zapata. She's gonna share her perspectives on didactic innovation. Actually, the topic of this talk is didactic innovation and active methodologies in the communicative teaching of English, right?
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here attending this commitment. Basically, this presentation examines didactic innovations and active methodologies, the communicative teaching of English in the current international context, with the aim of enriching educational quality. So if please, on the next slide, please. And based on an executive review of the specialized literature, innovative and approaches and strategies were identified that foster students' participation and motivation. So it was found that practices such as task-based learning, situated and learning, gamifications, and use of interactive technologies, as the first presentations mentioned, it is meaningful and playful learning. Furthermore, Active methodologies enhance students' engagement by making them protagonists of their own learning. Please, on the next slide. Continue, please. Next one. There we go. One of the active methodologies that I mentioned here is that in today's global education context, English proficiency is considered as a key competence for students and professionals seeking integration into international environments. And that's why I mentioned this, not the mains, but some of the active methodologies like task-based learning, situated and project-based learning, gamifications, interactive technologies as in educational games and multimedia, cooperative and collaborative learning, and of course, the last but not least one, flipped classroom model. By implanting this communicative approach in an English teaching, which is approach emphasizes in learners' communicative competences, prioritizing interaction of real use of language. Basically, this can help us as a didactic innovation by activities focused on real communicative tasks in which language is learned through problem solving, and also the use of authentic context like local, cultural, virtual context, where linguistic context is integrated in a contextualized way. It doesn't matter if it's urban sections or rural sections, but this fosters relevance and connection to students' everyday lives. As a gamification, we can incorporate games elements, and I'm going to skip this part because it was already mentioned and really very, very good explained. And interactive technologies, I mean, the use of digital resources as what our students have on their hands, like cell phones, maybe tablets, and we can keep using those apps that are free for them or cheaper, not free, but cheaper, as in the previous presentation mentioned. Also, I would like to close this part with flipped classroom, which is a model where theoretically content is studied outside class by videos, readings, and things around students' context that can implement at a class time which is devoted to communicative practice of the language. Next, please. As a bit of pedagogical benefits, I'm going to mention some of them, but as we see in these slides, we have more than 5, 6, 7. First of all, I would like to mention the greater motivation and engagement, which combining meaningful activities with educational technology increases students' attention and interest in English, but also it depends on the teacher. That is what pedagogical benefits. Contextualizing learning is, by engaging with real tasks and authentic context, students develop communicative skill applicable beyond the classroom. Not only in there. Let's take account of the context around our school, around our community, not only in the classroom. As an active participation and deeper retention, I mean learners can take an active role in their training, reinforcing attention and promoting deeper learning. So teachers, we still have a lot of homework to do by engaging students. And by the development of higher order skills, I mean that those methods improve soft and cognitive skills like collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, while strengthening language competence. So these results are consistent with constructivist theories, learner building knowledge through interaction and reflection. Additionally, playful technologies like apps, augmented reality, and by adding a motivational component that leads to improved academical resource in English. Please, next. We also have challenges and implementations. Not everything is beauty, but not the beast either. So despite the benefits, implementing methodologics innovations faces notable changes. We have identified obstacles such as a lack of specialized teacher training who are limited technological resources. We also have difficulties adapting content to different competency levels. And then it's not because we don't want to, it's because we're limited because of different situations and contexts. So these factors may restrict the effectiveness of innovative methods in resource-constrained classrooms. Overcome these barriers, I have some measures what I propose. Well, continuous training, investment in technology, interdisciplinary collaboration, pilot projects, and communicative assessment. I mean, it's not that easy and we might not get them into one scholar year, but we can try doing this by refresher courses and CLT and active methodologies, practical workshops, and communicative practice. Also providing devices, apps, and connectivity to integrate digital tools. Networks among teachers, researchers, and curriculum designers to exchange research findings and updates to the plan. Pilot projects, why not? I have heard in the previous presentations they already implemented, and to assess, implement, and adapt the strategies. And basically redesigning evaluation to focus on fluently and real-life communicative ability. This next. As a conclusion, integrating communicative approaches, the theoretical review presented here showed that integrating communicative approaches with active methodologies is a promoting way to improve the quality of English teacher. So studies agree that strategies such as task-based learning, situated learning, gamification, and interactive technologies positively impact motivation, engagement, and communicative competences. So, however, gaps remains between theoretical innovation and classroom practice where traditional methods and material limitations persist. Therefore, this proposal emphasizes building synergies amongst teachers, research, and curriculum design again. So ensuring that the adoption of the active methodologies is supported by adequate training and resources. Ultimately, and not the last but not least, adopting active, innovative, and communicative approaches, contextualized and evidence-based, is essential to meet contemporary demands and increase the relevance of English teacher worldwide. Please, next. And this will be all for my side. Thank you so much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, teacher, for sharing with us that enlightening information. Actually, we have a lot of work to do, as you mentioned, and thank you for your proposals, right? That can be the starting point.
Thank you so much for your attention.
Glad we had you. Okay, and for attendees, I encourage you to write your questions in the chat box. Perhaps you want to share your takeaways. Remember that I will be reading a selection of your comments and questions. So this is the right time and perfect timing to start writing your questions, right? Remember to add the name of the panelist this question is for. Okay. Our fifth panelist is the teacher Mirna Leticia Uribe Rodriguez. Okay. So she'll be sharing her opinions and perspectives on brain breaks. Actually, the topic is brain breaks in the ESL classroom. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So today I will share with you my research on brain breaks in the ESL classroom. This research is based on both classroom experiences and literature review, and it highlights how brain breaks can support English learning. So, okay, that's the first slide. Can you go to the next one? Next one, please. Next. There you go. Thank you. So the main goals of this research were to define what brain breaks are and why they are important in ESL teaching. Also to examine both benefits and limitations based on evidence. Also, I wanted to provide practical strategies adapted for different levels and ages. But basically, the idea is not only to understand what they are, but also how we can implement them effectively in our own classrooms. Because I have heard that they were really good if you implemented it, but I wasn't sure. So that's why I decided to study them, right? Okay, the objectives, let me see. Okay, next, please. Next slide. Okay. Also, I want to share a short definition of brain break, right? Brain breaks are short pauses, usually 3 to 5 minutes, and that can be either physical or mental. And the aim is to reset students' minds, increase concentration, and improve memory. For example, it can be a quick physical exercise, a short mindfulness activity, or even a playful game. So it's a small investment of time that can produce better learning outcomes, right? So if you implement it in your class, I'm pretty sure that it's going to work really well. And if not, please let me know, right? I'm going to show you an example on the next slide. Can you change it, please? The next one. Okay, so this is an example of one of the activities that I perform in 4 of my classes. Can you play it, please? Okay, so what you have to do here with this activity is that with your index finger, you have to trace the line and also you have to follow the music, right? So check it. I don't know if you can listen to the music, right? So you listen to the music and you start following the lines, right? So this is a short example of the activities that I did with my students. Okay, you can change the hand or right. You can do many things with that. Okay, can you change the slide, please? Okay, talking about the historical context, let me tell you that brain breaks began to be used in ESL classrooms in the early 2000s, and they were influenced by educational psychology, neuroscience, and second language acquisition research. All these areas stress that movement, emotions, and active participation are essential for learning. So integrating brain breaks is not just a trend, it's evidence-based, right? So, for example, Eric Jensen in 1998, he the brain needs breaks, right? Because too much sitting or focus makes the brain tired. So that's why you need to give your students a break, right? mostly if you have 3 hours classes. Okay. Next, please. Okay, my study explored 3 main questions. Number 1, how do ESL students from different groups respond to brain breaks? Number 2, what changes appear in participation and on-task behavior? And finally, what classroom management challenges do teachers face, especially with younger learners? Next, please. And for my methodology was mostly observation. I selected four classes. One was in the VA in ELT students because I wanted to know the perspective of future English teachers. Also, I applied these activities in engineering and physical therapy students and children 11, 12 years old in the class, right? And I collected the data by taking notes about students' comments. Next, please. And the results were really encouraging, right? Overall, students reacted positively, with younger learners showing the most enthusiasm. I think it was, they were really euphoric with these activities, and they wanted to participate, and they were really interested in repeating these activities. However, with younger learners, classroom management was more demanding. They needed clear rules and routines when implementing them. Next, please. Here you can see the results of my research in the lay engineering and physical therapy classrooms. In general, it was very positive, so they really worked. Next, please. Now, I will show you some of the advantages, and among the advantages, we've found that brain breaks improve focus and attention, support emotional well-being, and encourage social interaction. But it's not only in my classes, because I found some reports that 73 of students improved their attention, and they found an easier way to complete their tasks. Next, please. Of course, there's also limitations. Brain breaks can interrupt the lesson flow if you don't plan it correctly and carefully. They may also be time consuming, and sometimes older learners show resistance. They don't want to follow lines with their fingers, or they don't want to stand up. But believe me that there are some activities that they can do and that they are going to enjoy. Next, please. Now, if you want to implement this kind of activities in your classroom, you have to take into account these elements. For example, you have to know what is the age of your group in general, what is the level of the language, the lesson duration, cognitive load, lesson goals. Depending on the results that you want to obtain from your from this activity, from your brain break, is the kind of video or activity that you should select. Can you change it, please? Here you are, right? There are some brain breaks to re-energize your students, to calm them down, to reinforce vocabulary or grammar. So depending on the results that you want to achieve, that's the line that you have to follow, right? Next, please. Okay, let's keep that part, please. And okay, here you are, right? I want to show you some of the channels that you, if you want to implement these strategies in your classroom, you can explore, right? All of those are on YouTube. and there are many, right? So we have guess the picture, quiz tunnels, we have videos, and spot the differences. So they are very interesting. Next, please. Now, to summarize, right? Brain breaks were tested in 3 ESL population with positive results in participation and classroom atmosphere. The main challenge appear with classroom management for younger students, right? The practical implications are clear. You have to plan the breaks around demanding tasks. You have to explain their purpose briefly, set the rules, and keep them short with clear signals. And that will be all. Thank you very much for listening to me.
No, we thank you, Mirna, teacher Mirna Leticia. If you wish to share your conclusions, it's fine.
Okay. It's okay, I just finished.
All right. Well, thank you so much for backing up your information with the evidence that you previously showed us and also the results, right? As we can see, brain breaks help us a lot, and they're a key component of language acquisition or language learning. Thank you very much. If you have questions for teacher Mirna, feel free to write them in the chat box and send. Okay. All right. I'm gonna wish just 30 seconds to write questions for the teacher. We can answer them at the end, of course.
Should I answer the questions or?
No, we're answering them at the end.
Okay, good.
Okay. Now we have teacher Miguel Ángel Mesa Flores. Okay, he will be sharing his perspectives on the following: digital tools for English classes. Teacher,
Hi everyone.
Miguel Ángel Mesa.
Yes. Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yes, clear and loud.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm gonna tell you about some digital tools that you can use for your to reinforce what students learned during your classes. Can I share screen? Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. Can you move to slide number 2, please? Thank you. So we have some different websites and apps that you may be able to use, or some of them you already know them, that you already used probably at the pandemic. And let's start with the number one, which is called BBC Learning English. And may I share my screen, because I have to access to each link, please?
You may share now.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. So this is the first website. It is called BBC Learning English. We have different options right here where your students can access, and if they want to keep practicing their speaking or their listening skills. For example, we have this in this picture. We can see like some series like similar to Netflix or Disney Plus and similar to that, and where they can practice their listening and some grammar points where they can practice this in this part. And we have different parts here like in grammar. Okay, you can search for different grammar points if you want, or if the students want to practice, or pronunciation, vocabulary. They can also practice their reading skills by reading news or sports, business, innovation, culture, travel, etc. And this website also manages what it is quizzes, and you can also test. They can also test their English level, and there's also a stage for teachers and for children level, and podcast, drama, and business. Okay, so this is the like the website that has the most most of the options for the students. And let me share you the number 2, which is Cambridge English. Okay, in this part where this is for the students who want to like get a certificate or to practice for a certificate exam. Okay, like the IELTS or different certification exams. Okay, and we also have different parts here, like we have support, community, and in learners. Okay, they can also have this space where they can learn about different topics, and they can also have an online activities, and there's also a preparation for certification exams. Okay, if they want to study abroad, they can also apply for it, and many other different options. Um, so this is the English, I'm sorry, the Cambridge English. The next one is the one that I guess all of you already know, which is the Meet. This one is used for online classes, for video calls. This one was one of the most used during the pandemic, besides Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Okay, this is used for video calls, and you can also share your screen with the students, just like um, I'm doing it right now with you. And you can also share your material, your slides, if you want to use some PowerPoint. Okay, and the next one is I got the one that is called Elsa Speak. Elsa Speak is for speaking practice. Is for students to keep practicing their speaking skills. Let me just click on the free version. Okay. Um, in this part, the students can find a tutorial at first, okay? And once they feel like they're ready to move on, well, they can just click to get started. And there's a lot of, there are different options here that they can practice with, like they can practice with repeating words, repeating sentences, and then they can move on to the conversations, right? It's like different levels from the beginning, which is the repeating words, then the sentences, and finally the advanced level is the conversation one. Okay, and we also have the one that is called Quizlet, which is very similar to Aditio. If you have ever used Aditio, well, this is very similar. You can handle your material right here, and you can also invite the students to have access to the material that you have and that you are using during the classes. Okay, this is the part where you can invite the students. You can invite them through the Google Classroom or through the email. And the last one, which is Duolingo. Well, Duolingo is one that you already know that is very famous. Um, it is mostly used for practicing vocabulary. Okay, there's not much to say about Duolingo. It doesn't really work if you want to learn structural grammar. It's more used for vocabulary. So it is a good option if the students want to practice their vocabulary. So that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teacher Miguel, for showing us how digital tools are so helpful and make our lives easier. All right. Okay, if you have questions for Mr. Mesa, okay, again, you may ask them through the chat. Okay, so our last panelist, last but not least, is Franklin Segura Nolasco. Okay, he has he's in charge of delivering the presentation or the talk titled Think Like a Student, Act Like a Teacher.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you listen to me?
Yes, you're in loud. You may start.
Yes, okay. Well, good afternoon to all of you. It is a pleasure to be here and an honor that you accept my participation in here. And it's really nice to see some familiar faces too as well. So I feel like I'm going to give like a summarize about what we all have seen today because it has to be certainly with the purpose of my presentation, like to think like a student and act like a teacher. Next slide, please. Thank you. Well, the first thing is to get the insight. Okay, the importance of adapting teaching to students' visions and needs. So on what we are looking for here, we are looking for some vision, the student's vision, in order to make our planning or session plannings or activities and make it really clear for students. But we need to do some research and to make some points over our experience and over some we need to make some theories to check what worked for us, in which context are we in. So this is a practice that we as experienced and research. Okay, so let's move on, please. On this slide, we have this learner-centered principles. We, as a typical classroom, have a teacher-directed listening class, right? That we, as the teachers, we deliver the information and the students listen and they just take notes to achieve what they want to achieve, right? And the other part is to change the focus into student focused. So which is the benefits? Which are the benefits? Sorry, which are the benefits of this student focus? Well, they give autonomy to the student. You give more active participation, and some of the presenters have this concept, meaningful learning. Okay, as you can see in learner directed, the image, we have the information flowing going around the classroom from student to student, student to teacher, and teacher to students. Okay, so the meaningful learning is about to give when your activities are done, or you set the activities in order that your students have the most participation in the class. Next, please. Over this, we have as an experience the observations. When you apply these changes to your activities, the observations are going to be the next ones, or most of them. The students respond better to interactive activities. How, like Jorge said in the first talk that we have, in which speaking activities and written activities, they respond better to communication skills. How? Because when you set these activities from pair work or teamwork or either group work even, they have more freedom to create and to do things. And obviously, if they make mistakes, they are not alone. For example, if we ask them to participate as an individual, they feel afraid to participate just by themselves, or they don't feel comfortable. And when it is pair work or teamwork or even class work, they feel more comfortable and confident. The second point is for adapting tasks to real life context. Some of the presenters have this as a really meaningful thing to do, or to create real life context. Yes, of course, the usage or the useful language is something that we need to provide to students, and they feel really interested in some topics that they could use in different environments. I don't know if they want to travel or they're going to another country that they use the language, but you need to use it. And as a third point, we have that the feedback is the center for progress. Sometimes it's not really our goal, but praise your students whenever possible is something that they feel really, really aware that they feel in the class. Okay. Next, please. And this is something that another presenters have in common. We and them, we can share these ideas. Student motivation and engagement, right? So how this helps onto the class to become more, to fulfill the objectives or goals that we have established, is to give them a motivation, self-esteem, to encourage them. And the second, I have to highlight this one, the second one, the sense of belonging. This is something that it's taken really noticeable thing to see in the classrooms. How? Because we need to include all of the students, even though they're not participating well enough. When some student fails to class and maybe you don't know him or you don't know her, but you know her name. You ask for this student if it's well or something happens. Next class, probably this student comes to you, and I heard that you asked for me, and I appreciate it for asking for me, right? So it's the sense of belonging. It's something that we need to approach to motivate students. The next point is collaborative text. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Collaborative test boosts engagement, and of course, technology appeals to younger generations. Yeah, like we did on these different presentations that we had before. Please, next. And there's something that we need to get to know, understanding generational changes. This is something that has to be with this kind of forums, and to understand these changes is to get to know your students more. So you as a teacher make acquire the knowledge that they are having right now, and how do they learn, how do they feel really comfortable in learning. So these digital natives prefer interactive, fast-paced tasks. Yeah, something like we did yesterday or before into an hour class to translate the text. Now we can have the cell phone to translate and to move on to another activity and to make more proactive to the students. Okay, next one, please. Okay, which are the effective teaching practices over this kind of sentence or meaning? To think like a student and act like a teacher. Well, we need to be able to mix the tradition to innovation, like blended learning. Some of us, we thought before pandemic and after pandemic, so we know what is to feel like to be in interactive classrooms in digital classrooms. So this is a practice that we need to have. And of course, encourage peer learning. This encouragement to peer learning is that they're able to make mistakes whenever they want and feel free to practice and feel confident with the partners. And of course, the third one is personalized instruction to learner needs. Some of the students may have special attention, and we need to be able to personalize these instructions to these students. Next, please. As for challenges and opportunities, well, as we can see in the image, sometimes we are not really well acting for a challenge or to a change. So resisting to change is a challenge. Having our limited resources is something that we are always complaining, right? But if we have the activity of the students into the classroom, so they feel, how do you feel about changing or adapting a new technology? So the phrase in this image is, what if we don't change at all and something magical happens, right? So let's the world do the other thing. And the opportunities, of course, use digital tools, cultural awareness, and lifelong learning. Okay, we have to be aware of these changes, and this will be really, really helpful to us. Next one, please. As for conclusion, we have some points. Deeper understanding of learning processes, of course, more effective teaching strategies. Yes, we are going to interview some students and have the opportunity to make them feel confident and comfortable with us. And the third point, it's the outcome that we're going to have, okay? That the students' performance will be improved, as well as for the new criterion for continuous improvement, not only for students, but for us as teachers. We need to have this idea of continuous improvement because we're not going to be obsolete in the next year or 2 more years, right? And generational awareness ensures relevance and impact. Okay, having this generational awareness is something that giving us an update like our computers. For example, right now it's something that we're going to have to change, right? From Windows 10 to Windows 11, it's a mandatory change. Okay, so this generational awareness is something that will be having us as not only as a good teacher, but as a great teachers. And next one, please. For me, it's all. Thank you for your attentive attention for me. And as I recommend the feedback, please feel free of giving a feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for delivering such an interesting talk, right? We gotta learn how to think like a student, but then act like a teacher, right? From deeper understanding to generational awareness, all that matters. Future plan, frankly, you demonstrated us. All right? Well, I wanna thank you all. When I say all, I mean the teachers, for those excellent presentations. We've covered a lot of ground today, right? I told you that it will be about innovation, methodologies, and our teachers illustrated that very well. Now we'll move to our Q&A section, and I'll be reading your questions, the questions that have been posted in the chat, right? But if you have questions for Mr. Segura, I'll give you 30 seconds or a minute to write it down. Okay? I'll be selecting some. Okay, so Yadira asked, this one is for Marisol, teacher Marisol Acosta now. Is she with us, right? Yes, she is. So she says, gamification is so beneficial for the language learning. Students I have interviewed agree with that, and I have observed that in my research project. But why do many teachers continue rejecting it and thinking it is irrelevant and useless for language learning for teens and adults? Okay. What is the best option that institutions have to encourage teachers to use gamification effectively in their classes?
Okay, well, thank you, teacher Yadira, for the question. First of all, I will say on the one hand that gamification, even though it has a lot of benefits, might not be suitable for everyone, for every teacher, or for every context. It has its contextual constraints. So on the other hand, I will say that some teachers might feel hesitant toward trying this approach because it requires a lot of designing, a lot of planning, adapting, and creating new materials. So I would recommend institutions to include this approach in teacher training programs so that instructors can have the opportunity to try it and to use it and to test it. And I will recommend to those teachers who have who want to try it or who would like to try it is to start off small and simple, just by incorporating or selecting a few of the game elements that you think are going to be most suitable for you and for your students, to assess your results and see how it works for you and your students. That will be my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, teacher Marisol. I'm sure she's taking notes on that one. Okay, so Sobeida says, this is a comment, your work is very interesting, Aline. I'm going to implement it in my classes. Right, that's a comment. And we continue with Paola that says we need to connect with every class by phone, WhatsApp. It's funny and practical, I guess. Everybody should participate on it. Miguel asked, I don't know who that this question's for, but it says, how do you control trying to have a classroom as dynamic as this when the school institute has a more traditional approach that you need to follow? Okay, perhaps you want to tell us who this question is for. Maybe at the end, if you tell us. Andrea Makosai asks a question for teacher Mirna. All right. So teacher Mirna, teacher Andrea says, in your experience, which types of brain breaks have proven most effective in supporting the learning and engagement of students with special educational needs?
Okay. Well, I think that the previous questions, it was also for me, I think. I'm not sure, but okay, but let me answer first the first question that it was. Yes, there are some rules that you have, not some, there are rules that you have to follow and in your school, right? But there are many activities that you can implement for applying brain breaks in the classroom. For example, if the school prefers a quiet, structured class, you can include a 2-minute stretch and break between activities, right? So you can, I don't know, maybe implement a mindfulness in which your students only stretch and make simple exercises without any noise, right? So I think we can get a balance with that. And with the special needs, well, yes, I think that we can explore more videos or even activities. For example, if you are teaching WH questions, maybe you can show a worksheet with where's Waldo, right? And you can ask students to spot different things, right? And then you can select the students to participate in order, right? So as I told you before, there are many activities that we can implement depending on the needs of your students and the results that you want to obtain. Okay, I don't know if that answered the question.
Thank you, indeed. I started taking notes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, teacher. All right, so we have some comments here. Yes, clear. I like Elsa. Great tools, teacher Miguel. And yes, we can. Perhaps he's agreeing with something. Congrats, Franklin. Great, teacher Franklin. Great presentations, right? Okay. I think this is gonna be for the Q&A section, right? I appreciate that you send your questions, and thank you for those that sent it like previously and were answered. This brings your question, your Q&A session to a close, right? Thanks to our panelists for sharing their expertise with us, their insights. I hope you join us for the next one, which will begin shortly. Thank you. Let me just read to you, okay, a couple of announcements. We have Ricardo Fajardo's workshop. Those who registered for this workshop have already received a link to access to this workshop. Panel 2 will begin at 3 p.m. and you may use the same link to join. Okay, so if you registered for this one, for this workshop, okay, check your email and you will have the link. For the ones attending panel 3, same link at 3 p.m. Thank you sincerely to our attendees for being here, and I wish you a very good afternoon. Right?